Cryptic Command is arguably the strongest card in Standard. Some deck designers and pundits say that the only viable decks in the format are Cryptic Command decks, and the puzzle of the format is simply whether you try to win with Bitter Blossom, Reveillark, or Cruel Ultimatum. Personally, I disagree. Even if Cryptic Command is the strongest, it can be non-intuitive, and many players will have a higher chance of winning if they choose more proactive strategies. I found myself frustrated at losing games where I was playing what I thought of as good magic and netting mana on 2-for-1s that stymied my opponent's 2-for-1s. The Reflecting Pool control mirror matches, whether I was playing with Bant Charms or makeshift mannequins, came down too often to whether my opponent would resolve Cruel Ultimatum, and almost nothing else. So after this year's state championships, I decided to give Stephen Carpenter's New York State Championship winning deck a test drive. He ran a fairly straightforward Reflecting Pool control deck, topping on 1 Cruel Ultimatum. He wins the flip, and we basically play lands draw-go style. Now this is a control mirror, so please pardon the boredom. Nothing is going to happen for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 turns. Notice, you can't really tell what style of Reflecting Pool control deck he is by the lands he's played. So, at least at this stage of the game, with neither of us taking any action, it's going to be about who misses land drops and who has to commit mana first. Or, who has to start discarding. The first action of the game is at the end of his 5th turn, when I pick a fight with Esper Charm to draw 2 cards. I am fully expecting the Cryptic Command. Yep, there it is. Sadly, he returns a land to my hand, which is probably right, instead of just drawing a card. Remember what we said about land drops and mana commitment? By bouncing my land, he doesn't have to worry about my following up with a full value Muldrifter. Okay, now he has an Esper Charm. I don't have a Cryptic Command or a Negate, so it's going to stick. Now here's the first clue to the opponent's deck style. He's playing with Tidehollow Sculler. Takes my Bant Charm. I have a fair amount of action and just don't want to fall behind, so I'm going to Wrath his 2/2 here and get back my Bant Charm. Interestingly, he goes offensive on Esper Charm. So long to that Bant Charm. With that offensive Esper Charm getting through, he's going to use Makeshift Mannequin to get back his Tidehollow Sculler. So he's going to try to take my action, which in this case is going to be Muldrifter. So I'm going to spend the next 2 turns trying to waylay his Tidehollow Sculler with a Cloud Thresher. As you probably know, Cloud Thresher is one of my favorite cards against control. You can cheat for card advantage and draw out permission. And if it sticks, hey, free 7/7. My first elemental successfully fails. No, he doesn't come into play, and no, he doesn't grab back my action card, but he does extract an all-important Cryptic Command, even if it looks like a 2-for-1 in the opponent's favor. Another attack, and another successful failure. Ostensibly, the opponent is way ahead right now, beating me 3 commands to none, but by my count, that's 3 commands down, and we're still in stage 2. So he's looking to reload, taps to evoke Muldrifter. That's another clue. I figure my Muldrifter is worth a Wrath, so I tap out right back to play the Hiding Elemental, draw 2, and try to get back into this game. So he's got some Fulminator Mages. The resource fights he was picking earlier are starting to make a lot more sense. However, I have enough land at this point that the Mages are looking to be of minimal impact, regardless of the cardboard card advantage that they represent. I'm going to block here just so that I can set up my Makeshift Mannequin and draw 2 more cards with the Muldrifter. Incidentally, and regardless of how the Reflecting Pool control decks seem to be shaping up across the internet, I still really like Makeshift Mannequin. It's great with Muldrifter, great with Kitchen Finks, and you can still steal a lot of cards by catching opponents off guard during combat, especially if they're not playing around it anymore. So I'm going to run out the Kitchen Finks that I just drew. With the Cryptic Command in my hand, I'm feeling like I'm, right back into this game. So I'm pretty sure I'm ahead on these blocks. He's going to lose all of his guys. I get to keep my Kitchen Finks. I lose a couple of lands, but like I said earlier, the Fulminator Mages aren't really hurting me this game. I've found that you can draw 3 Fulminator Mages or 3 Kitchen Finks and beat the opponent so badly the game never goes to Cruel Ultimatum. But the significant low mana creatures came too late to do much for either of us in this one. I removed Soulless Sculler because I'd rather use that than just lose the Cryptic Command. What kind of deck plays Necrotal over Shriekmaw? There's really only one strategy where that makes sense. I rip Muldrifter, and it's just what the doctor ordered. You're never complaining about drawing Muldrifter at this stage of the game. This play is a little loose, especially considering I have a remove soul for the Necrotal, but I already decided that he was going to try to beat me with Revelark and not Cruel Ultimatum. Plus, I really just wanted to dig, and he was investing 4 mana in the Necrotal anyway, so I basically returned the favor to set up a +4 or +5. I rerun the Muldrifter here, and then follow up with the ever underrated Kitchen Finks. He crashes in for 4, and I double block one of the Necrotals, which is basically trading his 2/1 First Striker for half of my Kitchen Finks. Post-combat, he has another Tide Hollow Scholar. I basically have to remove Soul. But it was essentially a test spell, and he evokes the Revelark to set up a Muldrifter and Tide Hollow Scholar to take my last spell, which on the bright side is just a Condemn. His next trick, though, is pretty impressive, and he takes control of my entire squad, who find themselves very tempted by some 2/2 Fairy Wizards. I pull Cryptic Command and obviously use it on upkeep so he can't draw his last Cryptic Command and ruin me on combat. It's possible I should have lifted my Muldrifter instead of drawing a card, but I didn't actually do the math. And there it is, the only card that matters in the Reflecting Pool Mirror, so nice dig. There's one of my 4 or 5 remaining Wraths. I'm obviously going to use it and finish up this game from a commanding position. I'm up several cards, and believe it or not, life totals are equal. I'm going to create a small army here, which is a 3-turn clock. I was never really that worried because I knew I had at least 4 or 5 effects left in my deck that would instantaneously put the game back to even unless he drew an additional Revelark. And as we said before, he was down almost all of his Cryptic Commands. He moves for an Esper Charm to hopefully dig up Revelark and get back in this game, but concedes to my negate. As you can see, he got some pretty good Cryptic Commands. He countered a 2-for-1 Esper Charm, a pair of Cloud Threshers that would have been arguably 3-for-1 or better. I think at least one of these plays was wrong. They looked solid at the time, but the preponderance of my testing says that you have to give up some card advantage and wiggle room in Stage 2, or you will lose to Cruel Ultimatum. Just think back to how lopsided the game looked at one point, but I was able to turn it around with a single sorcery. If this doesn't make immediate sense, think back to the great Carlos Ramao, who went undefeated in Psychotog Mirrors on the way to winning his World Championship. Carlos knew from his testing that the opponent would have far too much card advantage for him to counter, so he concentrated only on the Stage 3 cards that mattered at crunch time, Upheaval and Psychotog itself. He stopped those, and it didn't matter how many cards they drew. Well, that's it for this look at the Reflecting Pool Control Mirror. This has been Michael J. Flores. I hope you liked it.